Okay, Jay Clark here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, get some tips on installing a larger disc onto your bike. This is a KXF 250. We're going to install a larger front rotor, and it needs a larger bracket to accept that. So first thing we'll do is we'll take the front wheel off, and we'll get some tips on removing the old one, installing your new disc and your new mount. So now that we got our wheel up here on a stand, we can work with it well. And so we're going to, sometimes the stock bolts have some strong Loctite on them, so it's a good idea to hit the bolts. It'll heat up the Loctite. And it just doesn't take very much at all. Just a little hit, and then they come right loose. And it's a good idea to keep a lot of pressure on the bolt, because these are Allen heads on this bike. The Hondas use a 10 head, which is a little bit easier to get grip on. You can see the stock Loctite does bind up in there. So we're just going to pop all the bolts off, and we'll reinstall the larger rotor. So at this point, we're going to pull the stock one off. You can see the difference in size, approximately. It's quite a bit larger, also a little bit more of a wave design to it. So a lot larger, a lot more braking power. So we're going to throw this on here. Usually riding's up. It's a good rule of thumb. So we'll throw this right here. Now it's a good idea to put a little bit of thread locker back on. We'll put a little medium thread locker on the threads, and we'll reinstall all the bolts right now. So at this point, we're just going to drive them down and just get them snug with something like with a nice T-handle on it. It's just quick and easy. And then we'll tighten them up tighter with our like our ratcheting wrench. We can get them nice, good and snug. On these, just good and tight. If you over tighten them, you're probably going to round out the Allen before you break anything. So you have a good Allen bit. This is a good Craftsman or Snap-on bit, and get down in there nice and snug. And you're kind of holding down as you tighten it up. And you just feel it, and you just go cross and back and forth, and you're good. So now we're going to go over to the bike and show how to install the larger mount. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is remove the brake pad pin, which holds the brake pads in place. If you forget to do this, it's a little bit hard because it's hard to hold the whole caliper in place. So we get that out first. And loose, get your brake pads, set those down. Now we're going to remove the two mounts. Okay, so now we've got our brake caliper off, and we can remove the stock mount. So, and now we'll need to remove. We hold it up here to the same. You'll need this piece, this little metal bracket, the rubber piece, and the guide pin. So we'll need to replace all those onto the new mount. We'll do that right now. So at this point, we want to break loose. We have your wrench on there. It's a 12 wrench. We're going to just break that brake pin loose and back it on out. T-handle will work really good just to back it out. Again, there's a lot of thread locker on there, so it'll be a little bit gummy coming out. Now we'll pull let's pull the rubber piece off and the clip. Pull the clip off. Put the new mount in the vise, and we're going to install the new parts right in there. This is the clip that keeps the brake pads in place. We'll push that in there. Rubber piece for the guide pin on the other side of the caliper. It just pops right in, and we can put a little grease inside of it for the other mating pin. So now we're going to install the new guide pin in, and we put a little bit of red Loctite. So we want a real strong thread locker on here, just like this. And again, just a 12 T-handle, tighten it up, good and snug, and then nice and tight. Little wrench, give you a little more tightening pressure. You can feel it, good and snug. We're good. So in this clip, if you bend it in a little bit, it'll help it grab and hold a little better. But sometimes they're still kind of can be a bear, and you got to kind of fight with them. But you got to run that clip. A lot of guys will forget to put that back in there. A little bit of grease on the guide pin as well. Okay, so at this point we're going to install the new caliper and the new mount for the caliper. Putting a little grease on the guide pin that goes inside the rubber piece, and everything else is ready to install back. So at this point, we're ready to install our brake pads back in. little bit of grease right on the threads, just a little bit, not too much, will help because you get a lot of corrosion down here from washing the bikes and so forth. So a little bit of grease will help prevent it from galling up on you when you pull it off in the future. Just good and tight, and we're good. Spread the brake pads apart. And reinstall. On the mount bolts, we'll put a little bit of just a medium thread locker. Nothing too excessive on this is needed. So now we'll tighten them up. Again here, just good and snug. They don't have to be really tight. Just want to make sure that they're not loose. Double check your guide pin that it's good and tight. So as your prime brake pads apart, just be real careful not to mar up the pads. You're just gonna barely spread them apart. Just makes it a little easier for you getting the disc in. With a brand new rotor, it's a good idea to clean off, make sure there's no residue on the disc itself. And get it off on both sides of the disc. Help make sure that there's no oil residue left, and get good grip right from the beginning. If you have to hit the axle with a hammer, you got to make sure that the axle is within the right side lug. It's already in there. If you don't, you're just beating it into the lug. So you want to be careful of that. Snug down our nut there, and then tighten the outer nut. Okay, so we're ready to hit the track with our larger rotor and more braking power. So you can go a little faster because you can brake a little later.